Hello, hello. We are here live with the season premiere. People always ask with the beautiful and talented Queen Ravenden. How you doing?
I am blessed. I am happy to be here. I'm feeling healthy and vibrant. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm happy to have another season starting. I'm hoping that folks are going to join in and ask us questions because I know a lot of people are getting into this herbalism, holistic healing, thing right
Yes, the
now. Not
things.
that everybody knows what it is, just that like in theory, we all want to like eat right, feel good, and have the whole package together.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing talk therapy and EMDR for a while. And something that comes up a lot is people think the only way you can heal is like through talk therapy.
Talking, yes.
And I'm like, where they do that at? You, of course, you can heal in other ways. Of course, don't you? Can't you tell that other things are healing you, and that other parts of our world are kind of healing? So that's why I thought great way to start the season. May as well bring somebody on who knows about the whole picture of how health and spirituality and mental health are all connected. Because I don't know anybody who does quite as many different aspects holistically as you do. So I'm glad to have you on. I'm glad
Oh
to
my
have you
goodness,
with
good
us.
thanks. Yes, it's all about the mind, body, spirit, and that connection. It's really about having that balance and knowing that there's so many different tools that you can use to access that might not work for different people, or something that works for you might not work for your cousin or your best friend. And knowing that there's a wide variety of ways to heal that you can tap into. That's not just talk therapy.
I mean, I know for you, you started with the movement. So
Mm-hmm.
take us through your journey because now you're doing herbalism, now you're doing dance therapy. So I'm curious, like from a perspective, and you're also doing ancestral healing. So I don't want to put
Yes.
that to the side because spirituality is huge, huge, huge. And so take us on a journey of how like what came first and then how did we get to this version of Queen right now?
Oh my goodness, the full story, the full circle story. My mother would say I came dancing out of her womb, so I just came out just with a little shimmy. I've been dancing ever since. When I first moved to New York, I came as a dancer. And while I was dancing, I was also doing my undergrad in psychology because I just had this inkling, this feeling that I wanted to help people. From there, I transitioned on to dance movement therapy. So, a beautiful combination of the both, and getting my master's there. And once I got my master's, I was like, okay, I've done enough school for a second. I just want to perform full time. And so I traveled, I joined the circus, I was a premier Black aerialist in New York City.
Yes.
I was doing music videos and like big concerts and all of these different things, while also incorporating herbs into my own lifestyle and making sure that I use these herbs to keep myself healthy. And then, of course, here comes COVID crashing down, raining on everyone's parade, right? So there's no more performance. There's no more like the artistic field and the entertainment industry as we know it is no longer existing. And then, believe it or not, I dive into this deep depression of, if I'm not a dancer, if I'm not an artist, who am I? This was very much becoming almost my entire being and how I understood myself to be.
And I
And
mean,
so this is when,
people may not
oh, tell
understand you
me.
were working out here. Like you
Oh,
were
yes.
like this is, and it's not easy in New York City to pay your bills with your art. So the fact that you had been out
Hmm.
there doing aerial work, being the Black queen that you were out at House of Yes, doing all of the work that you had been doing with the burlesque shows. I mean, that was a huge part of who you were. So I can't
It
even
was.
imagine the emotional drop off when that world
Hmm.
closes. What did you
And a
know?
lot of other people experienced that too. Like, it wasn't just me, this idea of there's nothing else left. What do I do? How do I pick myself up? How do I move forward? And then I dove back into my own spiritual practice. So I really got back into meditating. I got
Mm,
back into fasting. I got back into using herbs to cleanse my body. I woke up at certain spiritual times. I did a lot of journaling. I did a lot of moving and all of these different tools that I was talking about before. And after like months, I rebuilt myself. I built myself up from the ground and really understood that this was only just a part of me. I'd almost forgotten how much healing
Mm-hmm.
other people, how much this practice really helped to move me, how much dance was moving and healing for me. And then not just incorporating dance, but then tapping into art and visual arts, tapping into like theater and doing some like acting work with people, tapping into like mindfulness and meditation, guided meditations, doing poetry, and just like the whole full circle. And once I picked myself up, then I was like, I need to heal my people. Like, there's other people out here who are like where I was,
Exactly. Yeah.
just waiting for me to come, like, hey, sister queen, come on, we got to get ourselves up. Like, hear this, do this dance with me. Like, tell me,
Mm-hmm.
write about, like, write your life story in poetry, and then read it, and then move it, and then paint it, and then
Mm-hmm.
tell me how it's going to change, how you want it to shift through art. And just really like, oh, full circle, just like, it was just, that was my new like found passion, like not performing and moving people above the air, like in the air, but here on the ground with people and
Yeah.
really pulling out their strengths. And that's like kind of how I just came full circle to
I
meet
love
you
that
here right
though.
now.
I love that. And I mean, so we have actually a good question. So Shakira is asking what ancestral healing even is. Like what is that about? Which is a great question because I actually hear people talking about
Mm-hmm.
ancestors and orishas and ifas and all sorts of things these days. And so I am curious when you're talking about it, what does that actually look like? What does ancestral healing look like for you?
So there's many different planes under the umbrella of ancestral healing. So we like to explore like multi-generational healing. So the idea of healing yourself, but also healing your parents and your grandparents and your great-great-grandparents, and knowing that trauma gets passed down for generations. And as you heal yourself, you are healing backwards. And you are also healing
Mm,
forwards with healing your family and healing your community and your nation and the world. So there's this back and forth as well. And with ancestral healing, another a piece of the umbrella is also going to be tapping into them as your guides. So we
mm,
talk about like our mentors here on earth with us, and then the idea that our ancestors are also wanting to mentor us, wanting to guide us, if we are just willing to tap in and listen.
I mean, it's tough because I know I hear that, and what I think immediately is of all the Black folks I know who are Christian, who are gonna
Mm-hmm.
say that's the devil. Like you can't. I've even heard people say recently meditation, right? That's of the devil. That's witchcraft, like things like that that are involved with calling on ancestors, spiritual practices, and that's I come from people who are Christian, and so it's
Mm-hmm.
an interesting conversation in the Black community because colonialism obviously plants a lot of that kind of like devil, this is bad
Yes.
kind of language in there.
Yes.
And people are scared to kind of leave the spiritual practices that are more traditional sometimes because we've been told a lot of stuff like that it's
Mm-hmm.
something bad is going to happen if we go over that
Yes.
way. And even with thinking like, oh, okay, if I heal myself, maybe my family will heal.
Mm-hmm.
That's easy to say, hard to believe, I feel like, for a lot of people, you know,
Absolutely.
like, sure, I could
Absolutely.
change, but my mother's never going to change.
Mm-hmm. But people change from like they see you change and then they want to know what it is. They're curious about what has shifted. They start to pick up on the different things that you're eating, especially in your family, like in
Mm,
your household. Like if you're eating things differently, then other people want to know what you're eating. They'll taste a little bit. Maybe they'll try it. Maybe they'll like it one day. But maybe they'll start incorporating it more. So the change really begins with yourself. And knowing that in healing yourself, you're giving other people almost like permission to change. Like
yeah.
it's okay to be different than you were in a positive way. Like just because you're feeling down and sick and out of balance doesn't mean you have to stay there.
I mean,
And
the
that's going to
second
be a big
part is
move.
the model. I mean, you're just giving them a literal example of something else, which some people
Mhm.
have never seen before in their whole life. Another way of eating, another way of coping. That's
Yes.
huge. But does your family share your spirituality?
I would also say that I grew up in a Christian household. So
Okay.
even like my grandmother is the only female priest in like the Virgin Islands. Both of my grandparents on my other side are like deaconess, like Baptist, and like all of my family is very much Christian. So I come from that background as well. And
Yeah.
kind of coming full circle, I'm never here to push anything on anyone. I always have them check in with themselves and doing what feels good and right and safe in your body. So is believing this going to bring up some resistance where you feel guilty about what you're doing, or you feel like
Mm,
you are somehow disowning a part of yourself? But allow it to, if anything, like bring up curiosity in your experience. But even curiosity is the devil for some people. And
yeah.
very much just staying with what they know and what the book says and what, your parents told you. And honestly, it's really just about what feels right for you. And you can't make people change. You can only lead by example.
And so you're kind of just a hands off. I'm going to do what feels right for me. I'm going to open up the conversation about what your experience is, but I'm not going to tell you what to do.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
even though I do a lot of spiritual work, people come from all different aspects of life. Like people come who from like Muslim communities, and people come from Jewish communities. I recently spoke to a woman who lives in Ireland who has a like completely different spiritual practice that I've never heard of. And knowing that it's not my place to push my beliefs onto you, but to understand where you're coming from and what feels right for you, what you believe, and how you can build on that strength as well. It's all about building on strengths, I believe.
It's interesting because so I teach a class of students, and something that's been coming up with younger folks in school
Mm-hmm.
is that a lot of African centered healing practices are getting pushed for all people of color, like for Latino,
Mm-hmm.
for indigenous folks, and even in the idea that like, where is the conversation for white ancestry and things like that? What do you actually think about that? Is there like a place for non-Black people in African centered healing practices?
That's a great question. That's
Because I
that's
don't know for
kind of
sure. I'm always on the fence. I'm like, I know good white folk, they do good stuff, and if they do
mm-hmm.
history and all that, but it always begs the question, right? Like, if this is right for me because of my ancestry, is this not quite right if this isn't your people? If these aren't your folk, like, is
Mm-hmm.
this gonna work the same kind of healing in the same way? Because I don't know. I've always been Black, so I don't know how it feels to not be Black in it. But do you work with people doing healing work that are from all backgrounds?
I'm mostly working with women of color, but I
Mhm.
also work with women who aren't like Black or Latino, like of African descent. And I
Mm.
believe that the work that we do is different because we are tapping into what feels right for you, and not just me coming in, bringing the drums and just bringing the hip movement. Like that might just not be where they are. It's really tapping into to what feels right for you, and not just jumping into, this is what we do, this is where it came from, now join me, so to speak.
How did
That's not my practice.
how did you learn?
Oh my goodness, it's all intuitive. I feel like, there's a sense of knowing
Mm.
about it, and knowing, like tapping into what feels good and right and safe. But also mentors are definitely a big part of that too.
I feel like that's such a struggle because I think there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people who want mentorship and they want community. I shouldn't even say community; they want like village. Where people really
Mm-hmm. Like
play
tribe.
roles and they really
Yes.
love you. And we don't. Not. I mean, maybe they got it somewhere, but I know in New York, the way that it feels for a lot of people is they're seeking that,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't quite feel like they have the mentor or the elders or the people who have their back in the same way, because it can be
Mm-hmm.
so capitalistic, right? Like there's a lot of things that are just capital. Like, let's just make sure that we make this money off of this. And that's a
Mm-hmm.
totally different energy than what you're talking about, which is really kind of
Absolutely.
spiritual and intuitive. How did you find your people? Was it just spirit kind of leading you to them, or?
I would say that was definitely a big part of it. I also believe that knowledge is power, and really picking up books that resonate with you and reading about them and who did they learn from. And then kind of reaching out to those people and saying, well, where did they learn from? And then you start to find that connection, that community, even if it's not like tangible right in front of you. But knowing that these people taught these people, and then those people might be more tangible for you, and then surrounding yourself with like-minded people. So
Yeah.
there was definitely a bit of spirit in there, absolutely. And then there's also this desire for knowledge and community there as well.
So let's talk pandemic stress, because I think a
That's
lot
a
of
thing.
people are going through it, and I've been seeing some stuff come up a lot. And because this is just the season premiere of this, I figured why not discuss what folks can actually do for themselves. I was drinking dandelion tea over the weekend. Flow came in. I was all over the place in terms of cramps and upset, and I was like, oh, this actually is pretty good. I'm glad I watched the Queen's videos the other day.
Yes, tap that in. Yes, tap
Oh
into the
yeah.
herbs.
But when we think about like common stuff that's coming up for people, it's like job stress, anxiety. What kind of interventions are you doing to try to make sure that you're staying good? Because I think people would love some insight into like, what can I drink? What can I do? How do I get myself to not go?
Yes, something, anything.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my goodness. If you are someone who enjoys meditation and yoga practices, things that are very like movement based, but also spiritually based, I would recommend things like Tulsi, which is
Mhm.
also called holy basil, and agadu kola, which they are both two different herbs that are grown outside of temples in India. And what they do is they help to decrease stress, but they also help to elevate like mind concentration. They also help to elevate like the higher frequencies of love and compassion. And
Yeah.
these are all things that we need to tap into right now for ourselves, and also for the people around us who are also experiencing the same stress that we're experiencing. So
That's
those are the first two that I would share. So Gadakola and Tulsi. And I would also put out there that you don't want to take Tulsi if you are pregnant or trying to become pregnant,
oh,
because there are some cultures who use Tulsi as an anti-fertility herb.
an anti-fertility herb. That might be something
Hmm
if you're in a little situation, you might want to pick up some Tulsi, maybe.
I
Just
wouldn't recommend that either. If you're in a situation, it might be too late. But just
well,
knowing that,
yeah,
herbs
that's
have
not
more
helpful.
than one purpose. So I just also want to throw that out there and make sure that people have all the knowledge before they start diving in.
Do you have a go-to, like when you're having a rough day, is Tulsi your go-to, or is there something that you sort of prefer?
I think that my go-to right now is some lemongrass that I'm growing
Mhm.
outside. It's in just with a little bit of lemon squeezed in as well. So it has this like really like brightening taste to it. And not to mention that it has like some chlorophyll that you're going to need to like nourish your body. It also has that calming feel because it's like a grass, like minty flavor. And
Mm.
I'm not sure. I think it's just because I'm growing it outside and I'm really starting to connect with that plant more.
I, Listen, I need to start growing something because I feel like when you grow your own stuff, there's something different. There's it's so much more
Mm-hmm.
to be able to consume that kind of stuff. But my little windowsill is not keeping things alive over here in the city.
No, you need to get a grow light. In New York City, I had just grow lights all in my bathroom, and that is where I was growing all my household plants. And then all my
Oh,
herbs were grow lights in the kitchen. It's just purple lights everywhere
all right.
all
So no
day long.
excuses. No excuses. We can keep
Hmm
ourselves herbed up.
Yes,
I mean,
grow your pharmacy.
something that has been happening a lot to people is they've been trapped in a space regretting something, like the going backwards, and they feel regret, resentment, revenge stuff
Hmm
starts coming up.
Yes.
When you think about that, like in a healing, like a holistic healing sense, the number one thing that I hear people saying is like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? Right? Like, because I don't
Hmm
want to go off. I don't want to lose my mind and go off at somebody from months ago or years ago because I've been sitting in the house.
Right.
What is the like holistic advice of what to do with that kind of ruminating like energy that could come up when you're sitting in the house, because there's a lot of folks there right now.
I think there's many, many levels to this. So the first
Mhm.
thing I want to say that is a lot of these feelings that you're talking about, like anger and resentment and grief and like hostility, like these are very, like you see me doing this, like these are very heavy, like straining, like hard to breathe emotions that really get trapped inside you and can become toxic over time. So eventually, at the bottom of the things you want to do is eventually let them go. Now, that is much easier said than done. There is so much you got to do before you get there, right? So
I
one of the
can't just
first
let it go.
things,
I can't just.
no, I mean, some people can, but most people I speak to, they're like, tried it. It's just, it's not, it's
It's
here to
not
stay.
working.
It's
Yeah.
not working. If I could let it go, I wouldn't be here talking to you, type of thing, right? So a big thing that I like to start with is really allowing yourself and giving yourself permission to feel these feelings. A lot
Mhm.
of anger that people feel tends to be just anger. So not just like angry, like I'm just angry for no reason. Like usually people have been mistreated, people
Mhm.
have been like talked to the wrong way, people haven't been respected, and the thing about anger when it comes up in these lights is because you know that something has been done wrong to you. And this anger is a way of your body showing you that you are being mistreated and there needs to be a shift. So when
Mm.
we talk about like things happening with like the Black Lives Matter movement, like we're talking about just anger. Like
Yeah.
people are angry because there was something unjustly done to us and there needs to be a change happening. So that can happen on an even smaller level, but sometimes people have such a negative connotation with anger that they're just like, I'm just angry and I have to get rid of this anger. I can't be angry. And being angry is bad. But sometimes
Right.
it's just letting you know that something is wrong. And really addressing that and letting it be will help to loosen up the reins that this anger is holding on to you so you can begin to let it go. So that is like the beginning and the end. And then the middle is going to be different for everybody to get
Mm.
from A to B.
What you need to do and what it kind of means.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of figured out that what that just causes. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it does make me think though how many people get angry and then they get in trouble. So the message is, especially for like Black people,
Mm-hmm. You can't be angry.
right? That's
Don't
that.
be an angry Black woman.
And
Mm-hmm.
don't be an angry Black man either.
Don't be an angry Black man
Let it.
either.
And
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people go between shame and anger, back and forth in seconds because they just can't figure out which one's the right one to be feeling. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting because I always wonder this. Do you think shame has a purpose?
Mm. I would say I strongly believe that all emotions are there as part of the human experience. Now,
Right.
to tell you what shame is there for, I cannot
Because
give you like a
I
straightforward
struggle
answer.
with it. I struggle with it a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because I can sense that sometimes it's really harmful, right? Shame can be really harmful for people to experience, like with anger. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
when they do body scans on it, they just show like people's bodies are just frozen, like they're not feeling it.
Yes, like Titans, yes.
And I'm just like, but I've met a lot of people who they don't have a huge range in between rage and shame. Like it's freezing or it's full blown rev up. When it comes to like
Mm-hmm.
movement and because I always say you gotta metabolize the feelings, like you gotta get them out,
Yes.
move through it. How how do
Mm-hmm.
how do you work with people around anger coming up like in their body? Like if they need to go to
Yes.
work or they need to do something, what does that kind of look like?
We can take the same technique that I'm going to share with you for any like very strong emotions. So like depression,
Mm,
anxiety, anger, like what I enjoy doing or what really moves me and tends to move other people is realizing where you feel that anger in your body and really like taking some time to like focus in on that and just knowing like what that feels like in your body, what the tension feels like, how it moves, what color is it, and then shifting your attention to a different part of the body that doesn't feel as heightened but doesn't feel
mm,
like sad either, so this kind of neutral area, and then spending some time there too, and then slowly moving and shifting between the two and knowing that over time, you can pull yourself away from that strong emotion to not maybe feeling great, but at least feeling like, okay, I'm okay. I can like shift my attention to somewhere else where I'm not holding that strong feeling so that I can get through this activity that I need to do.
I want to be really clear with people because I think sometimes people think changes happen really quick. Like if they start moving and paying attention today, that by next week they should be in a good place around everything. But realistically, when you see people struggling, especially who have like trauma and all sorts of history, because you're working with women of color, so I imagine a lot of them, there's layers to what they're going through. How long does that kind of shift? Like if you're really disconnected and you're in your head and you're doing all that stuff, how long does that shift of that sort of connected, purposeful experience, how long does it take for that to really start feeling like something that you have some more access to? Because I know people who are just like, listen, I tried. I sat down for like 2 minutes. I couldn't focus on it. Now I'm back in my thoughts. How long do people struggling to kind of get to a place that feels okay? Not even like great, but just okay with being able to do that.
I wish that there was like a specific answer, like in 3 to 4 weeks, you know, you're going to see results like this.
Right.
Like it definitely doesn't work like that. It really starts from like, what is your baseline? Like how strong is your body awareness? How much resistance do you have to the work and to change? And knowing like these two basic things will help to see like how long is it going to take you to reach where you want to be? Like how much trauma have you built up? How many layers of like limiting beliefs and negative thoughts do you have like getting in your way of peeling back the layers that you need to peel back before the healing can occur? Because like we said, we are like multi-layered, multi-dimensional, and we have experienced so much that for different people it takes longer than others.
Yeah. Are most people familiar with the idea of like body wisdom, that there is some function to feeling, there is some meaning to what's going on in their body? Do most people you meet have some sense of that, or?
I wouldn't say so. I think that even when I like start and one of my first questions is like, you know, how are you feeling? And then people are like, you know, oh, I'm fine. Oh, I'm good. And then I start to say, well, what does good feel like in your body? And it's like, what? What do
Right.
you
Talk about.
Right. If good had a movement, what would that look like? You know, and then getting them to start like moving and then tapping into like what that actually feels like, starting to really digest, like you said, metabolize their feelings. And because there's been such a disconnect between the cognitive that we hold so highly in our society and like the body felt awareness, we've kind of cut off at the neck for a lot of people. So
Yeah.
just like starting that tapping in it can be really scary too for some people.
Yeah. And I mean, it's almost like an anti-capitalist movement thing where it's like you have to be like, listen, y'all, you're not a machine. So as much as telling you should never need rest, you should never be angry, you should never be upset, that's just not even what the body's made to do. That isn't really what
Absolutely.
this experience is all about. By the way, I was just thinking you'd probably be a fantastic mom because just all this modeling of like what to do and how to cope and noticing your body. I wish someone had that language when I was
Oh
growing
my
up,
goodness.
right? Like if
I'm
somebody had,
happy to share.
what's your
Take
what's
it
your body,
in.
what's your body doing right now? I'd have been like, my body? Like I would be know what to do. Someone has a question. They're asking, what unique herbs do you think are best to cook with if you have anxiety? Is there
Oh my
anything that
goodness.
they could
Yes,
step
great
it up with some
question.
anxiety reduction ingredient?
Yes. My first choice is going to be ashwagandha. So ashwagandha is going to help to reduce anxiety, and it is a bark. So what they do is they tend to cut it up in, I mean, not a bark, a root. So they tend to cut it up in like little tongue compressor sizes. And what you can do is you can put it in like your broths and it can soak over time. Ashwagandha is also really good for your immune system and boosting your immune system. So you get to, you know, boost your immune system and your mood at the same time. So getting that ashwagandha in there is my
I've
first
been hearing,
choice.
I've been hearing about ashwagandha more this year than ever in my whole life because
Probably because of COVID.
yeah, but I think also
Mhm.
because of depression. A lot of
Yes.
people are feeling depressed and they're looking for things not to have to medicate right away
Mhm.
when they're feeling
Just
down or
knowing
they're
that they need some
foggy.
help, something.
Yeah. And I think
Mhm.
that's why ashwagandha is like this weird thing that, I never would have thought to even take. But one of my clients who thought she was about to lose her mind actually started taking it and was like, I don't know what it does, but I was like 3 days in and I'm like, I actually feel kind of okay, which is a big deal because I've been feeling horrible.
Okay is a big deal.
I think it's a very underestimated state.
It
Some
is.
people would
It
be like, you're going
is.
to feel happy. I'm like, well, can we feel fine? Like, can we
Yes.
feel
Can we
fine?
reach okay? Can we reach oh so, like somewhere in the middle is a big deal for a lot of people.
So we are reaching the end of our 30 minutes, if you could believe it. So what I always do at the end of the show is I pull a tarot card, just to sort
Mm.
of center us on some sort of takeaway from the conversation that we're having. And I never feel fully equipped to have a takeaway message. So I always put it to the ancestors because I'm like, they know better than I know.
I love that. They know.
They know. So I'm going to pull
Mhm.
a card and see what feels right here. And I always like to plug this deck because I love it. It's a Black artist. Her name is, where is her name at? It's over
That's
here.
beautiful.
Andrea Furtick. It's the Afro
Mhm.
Goddess tarot set that I'm pulling from today because this joint is beautiful.
Gorgeous.
So, I had some cards with some white folks on it and I didn't quite feel right. So let's see what the takeaway around holistic healing is today. And so I got the Two of Wands reversed. I'm not by any means versed on every single card in the deck, so I got to go to my little guide.
There is nothing wrong with that. There are a lot of cards in there.
So let's, if you can see, they're all Black women.
Yes, bring it closer.
So
Oh,
that you
she's
can
gorgeous. She's sitting on the earth,
so
like
that you can get a
inside
sense.
of a shell,
Yes.
holding her two wands. And inside the shell is also like space, like the depth of like just outer space.
Yes, girl. Thank you for that beautiful description. The reversal of it, it's a need to organize long-term goals, right? So holistic healing
Mm-hmm.
about the long term. So sometimes we overlook important details of the future and we need to create a plan. You also might find that you're afraid to step out of your comfort zone, right? So this is what we're talking about with family too, right? And you've taken a
Mm-hmm.
familiar, now stagnant approach to things. It's time to broaden your horizons, goddess. Consider ways to change things up and move forward. So that seems appropriate, right? So
Absolutely.
if any of you guys have been over relying on your head, here I'm just gonna try to center this for you,
Yes. So
right?
you can
So
get
that
a
we can
beautiful look
see,
at that.
because this is really just about opening yourself up to the world, making sure that you're open to new and effective ways of healing and of knowing and of learning. And that's what holistic healing is really all about. So I'm so glad that you were here to join us.
Yes, give thanks for this beautiful platform that you are sharing wisdom and knowledge and just healing your people.
Well, listen, it costs too much to learn some of this stuff sometimes. Everybody wants to keep it behind the veil. And I always think you don't lose nothing from people.
No,
People know
not
it.
at all.
It's
Give
not
it
if
out for
not if you're
free.
working with integrity. So part of what I always want to make sure people know is if they want to find you after they are done watching this episode, where should they go? How can they find you?
Oh my goodness, the internet is so vast, but you can find me with my name beautifully as it is displayed right here at Queen Ravenden on Instagram, on TikTok for different videos about herbal remedies, on my website, queenravenden.com, to book healing sessions, to go to my herbal shop so you can get your organic herbs that I'm growing here in the Virgin Islands, by the way. And oh my goodness, and so much more. Come check me out.
Is that where you've been this whole time? Are you in the Virgin Islands right now?
I am in the Virgin Islands right now. That's
I'm
why I said
so
I gotta work on
jealous.
this connection. Girl, you know,
Well,
one
yes.
rain cloud comes by and it's like, internet, what's that?
But you know what? I would trade this Wi-Fi for a beach, so I guess we'll just have to
I'm
when
sending you all the fresh air, all the beach, all the sunshine,
please.
and you are always welcome to come join me here and join my
Well,
wellness community. We would welcome you.
when I get over this fear of getting on a plane, we are going to go places, girl.
All right, a boat would take a long time.
A boat would take a long time, but we could figure it out. Hopefully, we're all good in a couple of months anyway. But thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, you guys can join us
Yes,
here
yes,
for the
yes.
rest of the season on People Always Ask. We are presenting live from Queen Blueprint TV. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, follow. We're at People Always Ask on Facebook, People
Yes.
PPL Always Ask on Instagram.
Yeah.
All right. Yep. Yes. Thank you. And so
Yes.
we will be here live answering your questions every week. We've got all sorts of great stuff coming up this season. And so hopefully we have enough time to really get to all the stuff that people need during this quarantine, because none of us thought we'd still be here last February.
Right.
So
And who knows where we're going to be next February. So taking it one moment at a time.
just get you some ashwagandha, folks. And we'll see if we can make it through. And I'll catch you guys next week on People Always Ask on Queen Blueprint TV.
Yes. Give thanks.